I've journaled for about 1,000 days. In this video, I'm going to show you everything that I've learned about how to journal effectively so that you can become more motivated and focused on your goals, gain a sense of clarity and purpose in life, grow in mindfulness to combat bad habits, and a handful of other things. At the end of the video, in hopes to save you time, I am going to show you some techniques that I have tried and tested and figured out weren't worth the time. I've lumped every impactful technique into 3 buckets: reflection, introspection/clarity, and visualization. First off, reflection. The way I'm going to define reflecting for this video is reflecting that something happened or on that something that is happening, not necessarily going deep about the thing itself. And I'll clarify that later. Alex Hormozi defines anxiety by having many options, but a lack of clarity and priority, which leads to paralysis. Just recently, I went to my girlfriend's for the weekend and it was a really great time. But then I came back from my girlfriend's and I was kind of confronted with my life, confronted with reality again. The rest of my life started flooding in, like school and work and specific goals that I have and family, etc. I started to feel overwhelmed, and I just kind of paradoxically felt like I had a ton to do, but I didn't know what to do, and I felt like I didn't have enough time to do it, even though I wasn't really clear on what I should be doing. I did not know how I was going to move forward, but then I used this specific method. And a few days later, I was looking back and I was surprised because I was motivated, I was focused again, I was at peace, and I had been making steady and consistent progress on all of the things that were seemingly so overwhelming when I got back from my girlfriend's. This necessity, I'm sure, has a real name somewhere. It's defined in some literature or something, but I kind of just came up with it out of necessity for my peace and clarity of mind. I like to call it life mapping. Take a notebook, draw the words "my life" in the center, the date, then draw a bubble around it. Now on the edge of the paper, you're going to write one of the categories of your life, like work or school, and then you're gonna box that, draw a line to it. And under that category in your life, you're going to write a bullet point list of anything that is taking up mental space. That's tasks, to-do list items, or that's habitual things that you do often. For work, write down any next steps you have to do for a project that has to be out this week, but also write down that you have a team meeting every Thursday at 4 p.m. Anything that is taking up space in your mind, write it as a bullet. Now you're going to go around the page and do that for any medium-sized category in your life. School, work, relationships, friendships. Once you have gone through every category in your life and you've bullet listed everything in that category, everything you have to get done, everything you commonly do, and any specific thing that is taking up mental space, just take a step back. Think about where you are in life, the near future, and then just contemplate on everything written on that page. Take it all in, good or bad. As an extra step that I like to do, I go around and box the things that aren't permanent. So any tasks that are going to be checked off, or any short-term goals or projects that are going to be done, anything that's finishable, and so that you can see the scope of your priorities honing in. This is literally one of the most overpowered methods in this video. It's kind of something that I fall back on anytime I feel anxious or overwhelmed in life, because like Alex Hormozi says, anxiety is really a lack of clarity. It's become a cue for me anytime I feel this wild anxiety is to really just contemplate my life. But this is one of the best ways I found to do that. Almost any list of taking an inventory of your life and then any way to track progress in that list is going to make you feel purposeful. And once you start seeing progress in these areas of life, you see yourself removing responsibilities, you get to a point where this next method is vital. There's this online course called The Science of Happiness and Well-Being, and I think it's by an actual Yale professor. And the course is about exactly what the title is. It explains the science of how to be happy and how to increase well-being. She debunks a bunch of myths about the things that we think will raise our subjective well-being, our happiness, but that actually don't. Your income up to a certain point, what job you get, what specific school you get into, and more than all of that, one of the most, if not the most impactful thing when it comes to increasing your level of happiness and well-being, as the professor points out in the course, is gratitude. Gratitude is a cheat to mental health. I'm not here to cite you all of the documents and the scientific literature on this. You can look it up. But there are very few things that raise your baseline happiness as much as making gratitude a consistent mental habit. And so the method that I'm talking about here is just gratitude journaling. It's exactly as it sounds. You just write down things you're grateful for. This is usually my baseline. It's my bare minimum. If I don't have time that day, or I forget to put aside time in that day to deeply gain clarity or do some reflection or something, I'll at least do gratitude journaling. I usually just write down 3 things I'm grateful for, but I will actually take a moment and think back to something in my day that made me feel good, something that's worth being grateful for. I can obviously say the roof of my house or my family members or something, and that might be true. I am grateful for those things, but those are really automatic responses, and that removes that reflective element of this. And what I have found personally is that if you journal about experiences, it is way more impactful than journaling about objects, than journaling about specific things, material things. In no way do I want to make it sound like success can't make you happy, but even if you are saying that you're grateful for this new car that you bought or something, try to add detail to the moment and the reason why you are grateful for that specific material thing. It's a very simple, very powerful method, very underdone and under talked about. And this combined with the previous method, you map out your life, you start checking off priorities, you start honing in your focus, your clarity, and then you start actively practicing the mental habit of gratitude can radically shape the texture of your mind. Similarly, this next method will increase your well-being, your mental health, but this journaling method also cultivates a monetizable skill. I work in the marketing department at the company I work at. And if you're like me, someone who's a creator and trying to make a career online, you're probably going to hear people talk incessantly about story. It almost becomes cheesy to the point where people like, all that matters is story. However, after having the privilege and being blessed to be able to work in the marketing department for one of the biggest companies in the industry that I work in where I live, I can tell you from personal experience, from being in those company meetings, from being in those team meetings, even from one-on-one discussions, we focus on story at a practical level, at every level in the process. The idea that humans learn better through stories and that humans retain more information through stories and connect better through stories is not a cheesy thing. It might sound kind of abstract because it's a little bit hard to define the skill, but I can promise you, big companies focus on this. It's not a small thing. From the brand down to the individual pieces of content, there's focus on the story that we are telling the entire way through. And so this next method is found in this book called Storyworthy by Matthew Dix. And essentially the method consists of finding something in your day, some event, and writing it down later as a story. But to be clear, a story is not just a list of events. It goes way more in depth in this book about what a story actually is and how to tell a good one. And I would highly recommend this book. But 2 main elements of a story include the fact that the story has to show change. If I am the main character in the story, and at the end of the story, I am the exact same person as I was at the beginning of the story, that's not a story. That's me recounting my day. A little bit different than what we're trying to do here. There needs to be change. And the second thing is that almost every story hinges on what Matthew Dix calls a 5-second moment. The climax is almost never the crazy big thing that happens in the movie, but the 5 seconds in that big happening where they come to this realization or this conclusion. And this is usually where the moral of the story lies. You usually see the moral of the story in that 5-second moment. Oh shoot, I was being a horrible person, or oh shoot, he was right, or something like that. And so when you do homework for life, you want to make sure that when you are picking something out in your day to turn into a story, that you are making sure that there's change throughout the story and that there is a 5-second moment in the story. Not only does this make you a wildly better storyteller, which again is one of the most monetizable skills in this economy, but also you start to see your life as a story. You start to develop the eye of a storyteller, and that becomes the lens through which you see your life. And since the majority of the reason that we feel the way we do about our life is just because of the story that we tell ourselves, you have an opportunity to design your subjective experience by telling yourself a different story. By telling a story about your life where instead of something tragic happening, you had this incredible moment of revelation because you learned something from that tragedy. It's the reframing of your life. It's not something that I've done a ton, but every time I've done it, I realize the value in it. Okay, so the sort of next bucket that I've laid out is introspection/clarity. The difference between the previous bucket of reflection and this bucket of introspection or clarity is that, again, reflection is reflecting that something happened, while introspection is reflecting why something happened. And there is one single question that covers all bases when it comes to gaining clarity and the act of introspection. Why? I told the story in a past video, but New Year's Eve night of 2022. I'd been discussing my goals with my friends for a couple weeks prior, and although I was really motivated and excited to make the most of the new year, I didn't have a core reason, which I'll explain in a minute. And so throughout 2023, I made virtually no progress towards my goals. Why do you think that happened? Not only did I not make much progress, but I had to suffer going to bed New Year's Eve night of 2023 being in the exact same spot I was a year ago. Gaining the clarity on the why behind your goals and what you want for your life is the difference between someone who is merely interested, merely wishing for a better life, and someone who is committed to creating one. Whatever area of life, whether it be goals or relationships or your existence itself, asking why is one of the most important things to do. You want to use the Socratic method, which is basically just starting with a proposition or a goal or a question and asking yourself why. And kind of in a back and forth style with yourself, you answer why, and then you ask yourself why again. And you go all the way down the page until you hit a core or fundamental reason, one that you cannot go any deeper than. It will literally be like I'm having a conversation with myself on the page. And think deeply. The goal here is to parse out motive and intent, not specific details. I want a super cool car. The next question is not why do you want an Audi R8, but why do you want the super cool car? In addition, also remember that achieving goals is not just about achieving material success. Goals are a vessel through which you upgrade your identity and your self-image. In addition to your goals, you need to gain clarity on the man that you need to become to achieve them. Not only the man that you need to become to achieve what you want in life, but also the man that you want to become. Who do you want to be? But gaining clarity is not just limited to your goals and your identity. I've also written out stuff in my past journals about my non-negotiables for my future wife, which, by the way, is one of the best practices I can ever recommend. It's writing out your non-negotiables. I'm religious. I date to marry, but this can kind of overlap with our next bucket later, so I'll leave more for later. But my point is that I don't take it lightly, and I do think about my future, and I do think exactly why I'm going to choose one woman over the other to be my wife. Finally, one of maybe the more important and vital and existential methods in this video is contemplation. And I don't mean contemplation in kind of a colloquial sense. Surprisingly, I mean contemplation in a very different sense than anything I've mentioned in this video. I specifically mean prayer in contemplation. You can use your journal to contemplate on life itself. This is not a new practice. This is something that pretty much all philosophers and church fathers and great thinkers did for all of history up until 10 minutes ago. As much as we would like to use entrepreneurship and ambition and self-improvement and goal worship to distract us, frankly, we're gonna die. Distracting us with in-the-moment artificial goals doesn't change the fact that we're going to die. Death is inevitable, and if you are religious, you really need to dig deep, because that means literally nothing else even comes close to mattering as much as whatever you believe your relationship with God should look like. You should be focusing most of your life on living with and living for God. A lot of self-improvement is great, but very atheistic in nature. That's why you see figures in the manosphere with relatively decent ideals like discipline and taking responsibility for yourself, yada, yada, yada. And I'm not against the manosphere inherently, but it all kind of becomes a means to an end that is empty. All this self-optimization and entrepreneurship and discipline comes to earn you stuff that is worthless, especially if we're gonna die. Material success literally means nothing if you are going to die and you're gonna switch off the lights for eternity. If there is no overarching purpose or telos in life, then nothing is purposeful in the particular. Contemplating and thinking about death is something that I think we don't do, especially in our generation, my generation, Generation Z, nearly enough. Now, I'm not trying to convince you of God in this video. I just think it's important that you think about the fact that you're gonna die, and everything else in your life needs to happen in light of that fact. That should influence how you act. And contemplating that and writing that down is something I highly recommend. Same thing with prayers. If you're religious, writing down prayers is actually really impactful, and I learned this from my girlfriend. It helps you grow in the habit of prayer, it helps you grow deeper in thought while you're praying, and it also gives you a way to have repetitious prayer, which is helpful in certain circumstances. This last bucket is visualization. There are two main types of visualization that I will talk about in this video and that I have done through journaling, which have actually made impacts on my life. But first, there are two books that have wildly changed my outlook on visualization. In all honesty, I'm a Christian. I like to think of myself as someone who is relatively rational. I kind of felt like this visualization stuff was a little bit wooey, a little bit empty. Then I read these two books, Psychocybernetics by Maxwell Maltz and Inner Size by John Assaraf. Quickly, Psychocybernetics is about a plastic surgeon, basically who talks about the fact that most of his patients didn't really need physical changes to increase their morale or their life or anything, but they needed to change their self-image. Inner Size is basically how to exercise your mind. And after reading these two books, I am convinced that visualization is vital, arguably necessary to improve and upgrade and reshape your self-image and your identity. How you see yourself is your identity. The belief that you hold about yourself is your self-image. And from that sprouts all of your habits, all of the addictions that you can't quit, and all of the good habits that are automatic to you. So this is where visualization comes in. First off, positive visualization. What I mean by that is, briefly and simply put, writing down your dream life. Writing down from a first person's perspective in the present tense, which is very important, I'll explain later, but in the present tense, writing as if you had already accomplished all of your dreams and your aspirations. Go into extreme detail. And this will be very important, and I'll explain in a minute why. Once you've written out this scenario of you achieving all of your dreams and goals in the present tense with vivid detail, take 5 minutes to visualize it. Run your finger across every word as you read through the pages. Take a moment to pause and visualize certain aspects that are really impactful to you. And the most important step, which is something that I missed for a long time, which takes it from being wooey to life-changing, is emotionalize your visualization. You must get to the point where you feel emotion. Why? Because this actually changes your brain, literally. As it is clearly mentioned in both of these books, but specifically in this one, the activity in your brain is about 95 to 97% subconscious. Your subconscious essentially controls what you default back to. It's your baseline guiding the ship mechanism to your brain, for better and for worse. Again, it's the reasons that you do certain habits consistently and automatically, but also the reason that you can't quit certain addictions. Because your subconscious is convinced that you are the type of person who does these things, you do them automatically. It's kind of a self-preservation, saving energy strategy for your brain. There's a ton of literature behind this, and I recommend specifically Inner Size and then Psychocybernetics maybe. Highly recommend you read both of those books. The issue here is that you can't just consciously reject the subconscious, at least not forever. You can't fight a battle every day and expect to win. Good news is that although you can't fight a battle every moment and consciously fight your subconscious, you can introduce new input to your brain to shift your subconscious, to shift your self-image, to shift the subconscious beliefs that you have about yourself. And visualization is going to be the input that you're going to use because your brain, your central nervous system, cannot tell the difference between a vividly imagined reality and actual reality. There was this experiment done that there were two groups. One group practiced free throws, basketball free throws, every day for 30 days. And the other group just imagined themselves practicing basketball free throws every day for the same amount of time as the first group was practicing. And at the end of the 30 days, they both took real actual tests and both groups shot free throws, and they improved in their successful free throw percentages almost identically. I think the first group who actually shot the hoops improved 24%, and the group that visualized improved 23%. So if you can write out these stories in vivid detail and emotionalize them, your brain literally won't be able to tell that it's not true yet. This is also why when you watch a scary movie that you get so scared even though you know what you're seeing is fake. Your brain can't tell the difference. And again, over time, as you visualize yourself being the type of person who has the evidence that they are that type of person, that input of visualization stacks up as real evidence in your brain because, again, your brain can't tell the difference. And then you actually start to shift your subconscious. Visualization can shift how you see yourself, therefore all of your actions. It doesn't have to be a fight every day for the rest of your life. I say this so passionately because I didn't focus on this for way too long. And I'm just now realizing the impact of this. Then There is negative visualization. This is a Stoic practice. The Stoics believed in only focusing on what you can control, and so they would visualize themselves experiencing the worst tragedies. I don't remember what book it was, but I had a book of Stoicism, and it was just the practical tools, and it described negative visualization, and it was like saying, visualize your house burning down and all of your family members dying. Visualize yourself seeing your mother die, and all of these horrible things. And it actually works because it helps you prepare for the inevitable in some capacity. God forbid your house ever actually burns down, but like your parents will die. If you can visualize yourself experiencing these horrible tragedies, and then on top of that, responding to them in a Stoic way, only focusing on your reactions and your ability to react well, again, your brain won't be able to tell the difference. This will be genuine input for your brain in shifting who you are. It will literally prepare you for the future without having to learn the hard way from repeatedly experiencing trauma. And also, it keeps you prepped and humbled through the rest of your life. It's really easy to get tunnel visioned on your goals or on the comforts of life. And if you continue to visualize all of these horrible things happening, you realize how transparent and how flippant life can be and fortune can be. And that's a huge benefit too. This is also why affirmations don't work. People think if you just write a bunch of stuff down repetitively, that something in life is going to change and the universe is going to manifest. That's stupid. You need to feel the emotion of those affirmations and then take action on them. Visualization can change your brain, and your brain can change your actions. And that's how life manifests things for you, is that it changes how you see yourself. But simply just writing them down repetitively and hoping that something would change is stupid. It's not Stoic, and it's a waste of time. Finally, you need to record your wins and losses. Make note of your losses, but don't emotionalize them. Don't identify with them. Don't dwell, but we'll talk about that briefly in a minute. Ask how to fix the loss, and then move on. And make light of your wins. Identify with who you are when you're winning in life. Identify with the good actions. Record them in your journal. Write your wins. Make it clear on what you did, identify with it, and then see how it connects to helping you achieve your goals and the life that you desire. Using journaling to record your wins and losses is super huge, and I think Alex Hormozi talks about this all the time. However, I have wasted months of my life doing the exact things that I explained to you in this video. There is exactly one difference between journaling in a way that can upgrade your life and change your life, and journaling in a way that is a waste of time and paper. The difference is intention. I ran into this a lot with gratitude journaling. I would just end up recording stuff that happened in my day. No actual gratitude was occurring. It was just a list of events. It was because I was doing it unintentionally. Same thing goes for every other method. If you're doing it unintentionally, you're just wasting time. If you're not actually experiencing the visualization, if you're not actually being grateful when you write down what you're grateful for, it's not worth it. One method that a lot of people online recommend is writing down stream of consciousness, and there might be a time and place for that. And I'm sure there's one study somewhere that ambiguously affirms it, but coming from my experience for journaling for the past 1,000 days, stream of consciousness has either not benefited me at all or been inferior to any of the other things I've mentioned in this video. If you're overwhelmed, do some life mapping. Don't just stream of consciousness it. If I sit down and sort of treat my journal like a diary and I'm just writing down random thoughts or resentment I have towards certain people or drama or stuff like that, I don't really gain much from that. I have pocket notebooks for random thoughts too. You want to be intentional with your time journaling. And there is a fine line between journaling for clarity's sake or journaling to gain something from that experience and journaling just for the sake of checking it off a habit tracker or writing whatever words come to your mind for no apparent reason. You need to, like with every other habit, journal with intention. Journaling is a tool to improve your life. It's not a trick or something, so treat it like one. Like a tool to improve your life, not a trick. I don't want my journaling to be a glorified list of quotes from my brain. I want it to be a place of continually refining clarity. After journaling for 1,000 days, almost 1,000 days now, which is crazy to say, I have actually learned so much and genuinely believe that this is one of the most impactful habits out of any of the ones that I do. From boosting my mental health and mental clarity to upgrading my self-image and contemplating my death, everything we've covered in this video has been stuff that I've actually done and benefited from. However, the reason it benefited me so much is I did it consistently. It is a cumulative habit, meaning that it builds on top of itself. A collection of random things adds up to nothing, but a collection of consistent journaling every night leads up to a better self-image, a better life, better mental state. If you want to learn how to be consistent, not just in journaling, but in good habits in general, but also specifically journaling, click on this video right here. But I hope this video brought you value. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.